right, well, I'm going to take the liberty of calling this meeting to order a minute early. We'll call to order the College Township Council Meeting of Thursday, April 17th, 2025. First item on the agenda is I'm going to ask everyone to stand who can and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is that okay, since we're live, that we started a minute early? Okay. I don't know if the, the commercials, the sponsors of this, the commercial entities would be upset or not, so probably not.
If not, someone has your email.
Yes.
They know how to reach you.
Oh, don't I know that? All right, that takes us to public open discussion. This is the opportunity for anybody online or in the room to address council on something that's not already on tonight's agenda. And I'm looking to Andrew, who looks like he's ready to address council.
Good evening. My name's Andrew Schaefer. I live in State College Borough. According to item 21-06 of the council's consent agenda, the township staff is still reviewing the scope of the work for the independent casino impact study, with a report on the results of their negotiations to be presented at the May 1st, 2025 council meeting. Tonight's meeting agenda does not contain a discussion of the independent casino impact study, which implies that these negotiations are still ongoing, despite the clear conflict of interest that I presented at the council's last meeting, and despite the significant community feedback that has been submitted to the council regarding Convergent Strategy Group's bias and conflicts of interest since that meeting. I would remind the council that Section 5 of its request for qualifications for the independent casino impact study states that, quote, the consultant must not have previously worked for SC Gaming OpCo LLC or any parties directly involved with SC Gaming OpCo LLC, end quote. SC Gaming is currently planning to sell majority ownership of the casino to Saratoga Casino Holdings, and these arrangements have been formalized in legal filings submitted to the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board. Saratoga Casino Holdings is therefore directly involved with SC Gaming OpCo LLC. Convergent Strategy Group lists Saratoga Casino Holdings as a client on its website, and it therefore has worked for a party that is directly involved with SC Gaming OpCo LLC. Convergent Strategy Group is therefore ineligible to conduct the township's independent casino impact study because it is not independent. I provided the council with documentation to substantiate all of this information at the previous council meeting. At the council's request, I also sent this information to the council by email immediately after that meeting concluded. The council was elected not to include my email containing this information in its consent agenda, despite the longstanding policy of including all emails that the council receives in the agenda as a matter of public record. The township staff would need approximately 5 minutes to verify the information that I sent to them, but it is still continuing to negotiate with Convergence. If the staff considered the conflict of interest to be disqualifying, these negotiations would be a waste of the township staff's time. It therefore appears that the township is still leaning in the direction of hiring Convergence to conduct its independent casino impact study, despite the clear conflict of interest and in contradiction to the council's own requirements. The council should now be very aware of the biases of Dr. Fisher and Ms. Leckert, two co-founding partners of Convergent Strategy Group. Dr. Fisher was a former co-owner of 2 casinos. Ms. Leckert appears to be a specialist in attracting young people to casinos. Convergence has prepared, quote, over 400 casino and resort-related analysis, end quote. But when a journalist asked Ms. Leckert if her firm had ever done a negative casino report, she did not cite a single report. Ms. Leckert's specialization in attracting young people to casinos is of particular concern, given the 48,000 young people who attend nearby Penn State University. Her approach to promoting casino development aligns closely with Mr. Lubert's stated goals of turning the casino and the mall into an entertainment hub for the community in College Township. Ms. Leckert explained her approach to attracting younger people to gambling in an article for GGB News, which states the following. We can use experiences to pull in a younger generation for more than just gaming dollars, said Leckert. Once people are inside a facility for that immersive experience, the exposure to the gaming space beckons. To provide a more concrete example of what this could look like, I refer you to the Cedar Rapids Casino, which is the casino that Convergence supported through its biased impact report, which I shared with you at the last council meeting. This casino developed a science, technology, engineering, and math lab for the area's youth that is co-located next to the casino. Casino supporters in Cedar Rapids tout the STEM lab as an amenity provided by the casino's corporate social responsibility efforts. However, it also serves to attract young people to the gaming space and expose them to gambling. There's copious research available showing that early exposure of children and young adults to gambling serves to normalize gambling in these young people's minds and also to significantly increase their likelihood of gambling and becoming addicted to gambling in the future. Just as the Joe Camel ads that were shown when I was a child were intended to entice children into a lifelong addiction to smoking, experience-based casino design is intended to entice the youth of today into a lifelong addiction to gambling. Members of this council have previously assured the community that they would hold Nittany Casino's feet to the fire if they break any rules or harm the community. But it is unclear whether the council is even aware of how it is being co-opted into promoting addictive gambling products to the very people you are charged to protect. Your constituents who requested the independent casino impact study are expressing concerns about the consultant that is being selected to conduct the independent casino impact study being biased, but the council appears to be leaning toward hiring that biased consultant regardless. Does the council have the capacity to protect the community? Is it willing to do so? We want the study to provide a realistic assessment of the harms that the casino will cause so those harms can be mitigated. The study need not focus only on the negatives, but a biased study from Convergence saying the casino will only have positive impacts will not make us think that the casino will be a good thing, and it will not provide the council with accurate information with which to prepare mitigations. Instead, such a study will undermine the community's confidence in the council's capacity and willingness to protect the people of College Township, and it will also undermine the goodwill that the council sought to develop by commissioning the independent casino impact study in the first place. This does not have to happen as I've just described. The council has not yet finalized its decision about which consultant will conduct its independent impact study, and you still have the opportunity to choose an unbiased consultant to perform this important work. Please choose to protect your community rather than helping the gambling establishment to entice our children into a lifetime of gambling addiction. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Those comments, just like the ones at the last meeting, will be used as staff continues to vet the applicant.
Would you like me to send this electronically as well?
Sure.
Would you please include both the previous message?
I'm sorry, what?
Would you please include my prior message and this one in the future consent agenda so that it's available?
Well, if you send us electronic copy, then it's going to be entered in the record as.
We'll be sure both documents are placed
Yes.
in the next meeting's consent agenda.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Public comment? Online, in the room? Okay, then we're going to move to special presentations, which we have none of, and then on to plans, which we have none of. And that takes us to reports. There's a manager's report in our packet. Does the manager have anything to add to what's in the packet?
Just one or two underscores here on information that's already in the packet. With respect to the Dale Summit form-based code conversations, we are endeavoring to arrange a council PC special meeting, either April 29th or 30th. I believe at the moment the early leader is the 30th, but if you have not indicated to Katie your availability, please be sure that you do so. April and May are going to be very difficult for any special meetings, but these are a couple of dates that plausibly can work. So we would appreciate your attention to that calendar invite, so if you could please respond. The other thing that I did want to mention, well, was already brought up by our public comments tonight, is there's an ongoing review, requests for information back and forth with Convergence relative to the impact study. So that is where we stand, and I have nothing else to report, but would be happy to answer any questions the council may have.
Would council like to take the manager up on that offer? Anyone? No? I will. Last time I checked, all of the council members had replied to the doodle poll. We were waiting on PC members.
I think the last of the PC responded today, actually, now that you say that, yeah.
Okay.
Mine was more generic, not necessarily, only encompassing council.
All right. Well, I'm pleased to hear that we got timely responses from folks, given what we're up against in May. All right. That takes us to COG Regional, County, and Liaison reports. By my viewing the COG calendar, I saw that there's been 5 COG committees or authority meetings since the last. The first one was April 4th. According to the COG calendar, Parks Capital met. Is that true, Rich?
I'm sorry?
Did Parks Capital meet on the 4th of
It
April?
did, it did.
Okay. Anything to share with us?
Lots.
All right, we'll come back to you.
Thanks.
The next after that would have been safety, and Susan did provide a written report today. Anything to add to that?
Just to highlight, in particular for Rich, that the committee passed a motion to make a recommendation to the Finance Committee to consider approving a budget amendment for the purchase of the 2025 duty officer vehicle. And there were justifications for that, so that will be coming to Finance.
Already did.
All right, then. I don't have that calendar in my head.
Hits you Tuesday, hits me Thursday.
Okay,
We don't mess around.
Nice. Questions for public safety?
keep that in mind. That was it.
And then, Rich, the next one up would have been finance.
Yes. The main topics were, we reviewed our budget timeline again. We identified a potential conflict with Rosh Hashanah in September, and so we made a request to the executive committee to move their meeting slightly to accommodate getting all the comments back and getting them to exec, with the goal of pushing out the summary budget out of exec as we have done in the past 2 years and everything. So hopefully you'll be seeing that. We stuck to our action items first. The fire item we recommended as well. I think we did add some additional language to what came to us, but that was pushed to exec, and I assume we'll see it at general forum. The next is safe streets and roads for all consultant, similar, push to exec, should see a general forum, no real concerns on that one. Finally, we had our kickoff of our fund balance policy discussion.
Was there confetti?
Should have been, but there was not. We also did not achieve what we hoped to out of that. Actually, the first two discussions ended up a little bit longer than we anticipated. We're certainly not, at this point, we're certainly not rushing the fund balance policy. We've survived this long without it. We want to make sure we get it right. But I think we presented a good method of eating the elephant, and we look forward to actually having a consensus on the first section at our next meeting.
Questions for Rich? If not, the next meeting up was climate action and sustainability, which Dustin attended. He's not here tonight, and that would take us back to Susan for the College Township IDA, which again, she provided us a written report today.
Yep.
Anything else to?
The only thing to highlight is the small business grant, the $25,000 that we allocated for CTIDA. That'll be a matching grant program for small businesses along the Gateway Corridor on East College Ave for exterior improvement projects, so it'll be a 50-50 match. And Carrie reported yesterday, Ms. Miller reported yesterday, that there are businesses that are interested. She's been out visiting them, talking about them. A couple of them right along here are looking at some projects they had sort of in the works, and now that they've got this opportunity for a 50-50 match, they're getting geared up. So the grant submission period will close at the end of this month. So businesses have through the month of April. So a
Good
couple of
work.
other things, but that was the highlight, most relevant to us.
Any IDA questions or other IDA comments, maybe from staff? No? All right, and unless I missed any liaison reports, did I?
I had an alibi for the Parks Capital.
Oh, sure, please share.
So the Parks Capital had a special meeting on April 4th to discuss priorities and fundraising for the various things in the parks pot. Generally good, positive discussion. Definitely a very good, positive discussion for Parks Capital. That hasn't always been the case in many years. We threw out some various things one guy threw out a lot of stuff, but it was reference to that those projects are part of a whole big pot of other projects because COG hasn't been great about taking care of their facilities over the years, as far as budgeting for them for the future and everything. So that all came into play. Somebody put his finance hat on and shared about when the loans are going to be paid off. Someone also shared about doing long-term things with long-term dollars. There was also discussion of the Hess Field, that before we can even consider the sewer as an option, it needs to be allowed in there, it's outside the growth boundary. And then finally, the boardwalk, it was stressed for a public-private partnership is probably the ideal to it, but also that it should be looked at again on what may be the long-term life cycle cost versus what we can actually afford for what it is. It's a great plan that's on the table, but didn't appear to be a strong appetite for paying for it, at least all by the municipalities. So if it got the public-private and/or grant support, then that might be a different discussion. Phasing was definitely something that I push, take bites out of it as much as we can, but you have to have the whole plan, but then take bites out of it and everything. So you may or may not hear on the street from our peers, how those discussions are going, and it should be going through the authority to influence that discussion as well. So certainly more to come. But it was a very positive first meeting and first step. Two items from Hessfield. It was discussed that the master plan is in flux. The master plan that was approved by General Forum was for 4 fields. It seems like the predominant desire is only 3 fields. So
3 multi-purpose fields.
yeah, so the master plan will need to be modified again before we start talking all that, and that goes through the General Forum. And then also on the Hessfield, the recommendation from the facilities of using the luxury bathrooms was, it felt that was a good interim step. And towards that, the Parks Agency is bringing in one of those for one of the big tournaments this summer to road test that. So we'll see how that goes.
Questions for Rich?
Just a reminder that when we start to modify the master plans, that requires a unanimous vote at COG. Just wanted to put that out there.
And having been part of that process before, I remember the 2 options, the 3 fields, which were bigger and allowed for you to play the youth by moving the fence in, and the 4, which kind of locked you into just the youth. But I didn't remember us actually settling officially on one of those. Apparently we did.
Yeah, we took a vote, but now that you say that, it may have been it's been a while.
Yeah, I think it was because
For the 3, you can make a big field smaller, but you can't make a small field bigger.
right. And we didn't have the experience of Oak Hall in many years of what impact that would have, so.
Right.
And I applaud the idea of the Millbrook Marsh outlook. I mean, that's a huge expenditure to take on without some more definitive long-term return on investment or asset maintenance. And,
Sure.
Speaking of that, to be fair to COG, no one was really in charge of asset maintenance for a long time until we started pushing the need for a facilities coordinator, so.
Well, committee, then coordinator.
Yeah.
Now, yeah. Yeah, so the other thing with Millbrook is, lost my train of thought there, sorry.
it's a lot of money. It's a lot of, it's a huge
It is.
investment. No,
It is.
It's another Whitehall Road Park,
Yeah.
cost-wise.
cost-wise.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'm not saying that ultimately it may not be a warranted expenditure, but it's hard to get the commitment to
Yeah.
spend that without a bit more long-term, a more official long-term outlook on.
So the other thing that was suggested is that to get to even more than that, we may have to make an investment in the folks that go out and find this money. We may need to put public dollars towards that to facilitate more of this project.
Matching
And-
grant funds?
Huh?
Like matching grant funds, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, the relationship that the
Or-
borough and Patton have with certain organizations to, bring that to bear.
Pay to play the game.
Pay to play the game, yeah. But if we want to get it done, that's a method. But I also, I was very candid about the Spring Creek Education Building. Personally, I wasn't for that until the residents came and paid for half of it. And then I said, they have spoken. And so if we get to that on Millbrook, I'm ecstatic.
And it's pretty nice.
Yeah, it's a beautiful facility.
And one last comment, luxury bathrooms are only luxury in comparison to Job Johnnies.
Yes.
So, just so nobody gets the wrong idea.
Everything's perspective.
Yeah, we're not talking about anything,
They are on a trailer.
yeah, I mean, compared to a Job Johnny, they're gonna seem luxurious, but this is not an expenditure that's, should in any ways be determined as a luxury.
Yeah. As a veteran of Hessfield,
Yes,
yeah,
all right.
there would be quite a step from what we've historically experienced.
Then that should conclude liaison reports and take us to staff, PC, and other committee reports. I know Matt is in the room tonight. We've got Janet online. Why don't we go to PC first? Matt?
Yeah, Matt Fenton, I'm the PC liaison. Tuesday night, we continued our journey down the form-based code trail. Looking forward to our joint meeting coming up at the end of the month. We also heard, but we also discussed the PAM Health. We recommend that with, obviously, the DRI being the determining factor of that, pending DRI. And we also heard a presentation from Walmart. They're moving their pickup area from the south side of the building or the grocery side to the north side of the building. And they're gonna construct, I think, like a 3,000 square foot building. They're gonna put a lot more restriping of the parking lots. Does anybody have any questions on any of that?
Questions for Matt? No? Matt, I did read that. There was some media coverage on that. I'm assuming that it tripped the threshold for land development plan?
Yeah, the Walmart expansion.
That's why it's coming to us?
Yeah, it was 3,440 square feet. So there's going to be, the council should see it in the next, at the next meeting. They're just moving their pickup and delivery from, like Matt said, the grocery side over pretty much between Sam's Club and Walmart and that garden center that's there in the back. And they'll have associated parking and signage.
And none of the roads will be changed, yeah.
Yeah, no change to access, but restriping and, updates of stop signs and things like that. Better pedestrian flow.
So, according to media coverage, the council or the planning commission recommended approval. Was it
Yes.
unanimous?
Yes.
So there was nobody on planning, just to prepare us for this.
It was unanimous, yeah.
No concerns, no,
I thought it was a good plan.
okay, great. It makes it easier for us. Any other questions for Matt?
Okay, since we're talking about Walmart, there was two elderly gentlemen were pushing their carts around Walmart, and they collided with each other. And the one gentleman said, "I'm sorry, I'm distracted, I was looking for my wife." And the other gentleman said, "Well, what a curiosity." He said, I'm looking for my wife too." So the first gentleman said, "Well, what does your wife look like?" And he said, "Well, she's tall, and she's blonde, and she's 27 years old." He said, "What does your wife look like?" And he said, I think we better go find your wife first.
I didn't laugh. Okay, Janet, that takes us to you.
I really have nothing to report tonight. I will have a report for you at your first meeting in May.
Okay, that's May 1st, right? Okay. All right, thank you, Janet. Anything else that would come under other, like sesquicentennial celebration, anything to report
I
there?
missed the meeting, so I'll defer to you.
Well, I was not there either, so Katie, did you want to perhaps recount the Sesquicentennial Committee report?
Sure, we really focused on logistics for the upcoming event in May, the barn dance, May 17th. So we really, honed in on that. We may have another 1 to 2 meetings to finalize logistics for that event. We talked about additional swag, which I gave you some of that this evening, so at your chairs. We will have, we met with Scott Walker, Adam and I met with Scott Walker today from the Spikes. That event is scheduled for August 9th, so we really finalized some details on that.
Yeah, that one's coming along quite nicely,
Yes.
in my personal opinion. I think that the barn dance is likewise,
Yes.
moving right along. I think that there's still a few details to kind of work out, but I think it's gonna be a very nice event. It's obviously a free event, on the barn dance on May 17th. And I know that we have some advertising that's out and about. I neglected to look in this week's Gazette, but I don't think we're in there yet.
Not yet. We talked about maybe the 1st, 8th, and 15th of May, so three ads in the Gazette. We also were contacted by Town and Gown. They are doing an article in the June edition. So I actually spent an hour and 15 minutes on the phone today, providing some information about the events that we're hosting. So they're gonna have an article in Town and Gown. And then we have our November event. We have a date for that. That's Sunday, November 23rd, the official event. We still, are working out logistics for that too, so. It was a productive meeting.
Yeah, I also saw the article in the newsletter that came out,
Yes.
noting those dates.
Yes.
Does the township have a time capsule that will be opening? Or we
Well, we
set
do
making
have a
one?
time capsule.
Okay,
I can tell you where, but sworn to secrecy.
I just wanted to make sure what I read was correct,
Yeah.
that we'll be actually opening up a time capsule?
Yes, I mean, it's a.
You don't have
it's a
to tell us
time-
where, I
It's a
just-
time capsule from the 1990s. I mean, it's not particularly old, but
Oh, that's-
it's what we've got. I think that the idea was to open that and maybe add some additional information to what was already there when it was originally placed.
And then put it away for another 35 years, and
Something like that.
then we'll have something.
Yeah.
All right, questions on the planning for the event? Thank you, Katie. Anything else that would fall under this? Looking around the table, no?
Real quick, the managers meet regularly with CATA staff and the executive director. We had such a meeting today. What that's gonna translate into, from a timing perspective, they're about ready to come forward with a finalized number for the local share, or the local match, that we fund each and every year, member municipalities. And we're expecting a presentation from CATA sometime in May. And I can't remember if it's the 1st or the 17th, but in May, CATA will be here. And
I think it's the second meeting.
I think it is the
I think
second, the
we're doing
17th.
CNET
Yeah,
next.
CNET is gonna be on the
Yeah.
1st, that's right. So you can anticipate that in May.
So the May agendas are filling.
They are.
All right, questions for the manager on the CATA update? If there aren't any, then that would take us to our diversity, equity, Inclusion and belonging report. Mike, anything to update us since the last meeting?
Provided my comprehensive update at the first meeting, nothing new this evening.
Okay, despite the fact there isn't a report, this is kind of a public comment period, this agenda item, specifically for this topic. If there's anyone online or in the room who would like to address council on that topic. Appears to not be anyone, so we'll move from reports, which is concluded, to the consent agenda. And as normal, the consent agenda has three sections: minutes, correspondence, and action item. Under minutes, there's one set of minutes. It's the minutes from the College Township regular council meeting of April 3rd, 2025. The second section of correspondence has a number of correspondence pieces. I'm just going to read through them. The first, CA2A, is a letter from Frank Malott resigning from the UAJA. CA2B is an email from Charles Gable requesting Fourth Fest 2025 sponsorship. CA2C is an email from Dan Materna dated April 1st, 2025 regarding the casino impact study. CA2D includes a number of correspondences, CA2D includes an email from Susan Smith dated April 2nd regarding the Lamont street signs. CA2E, F, G, H, I, J, and K are emails dated April 5th, 2025 regarding the casino impact study from Pris Shee, Don Sestaro, Lynn Heritage, Lancy Cord-Barron, Ron Nargi, Loretta Jeffries, and Kathleen Postel. And then also emails dated the next day, April 6, 2025, regarding casino impact study from the following people: Avis Jones, Pam Zimmerman, Kelly Keefe, Merlin Ritz, and Joan Bouchard. CA2Q is an email from Derek Kelp dated April 8, 2025, regarding Mount Nittany Trail improvements. CA2R is a letter from Pantera Engineering dated April 3rd, 2025, regarding a time extension from Home to Suites Land Development Plan, the extension to July 27th, 2025. CA2S is an email from Alice Rodkey dated April 8th, 2025, regarding the casino impact study. CA2T is a letter from the Crossroads Group dated April 9th, 2025, regarding a time extension for the State College VA Land Development Plan, time extension to July 27th, 2025. CA2U is a letter from First Night State College dated March 28th, 2025, regarding ice sculpture sponsorship. We finally got our first warm day and we're talking about ice sculpture. CA2V is an email from a Soldier's Hand dated April 9th, 2025, regarding a donation. CA2W, an email from Pantera Engineering dated April 10th, 2025, regarding a time extension for the Center Hills Country Club Land Development Plan to July 26, 2025. CA2X is an email with article from Dan Materna dated April 11th, 2025, regarding the casino impact study. CA2Y is an email from State College Food Bank dated April 11th, 2025, regarding open house invitation. And lastly, CA2Z is an email from Bertie Lowell dated April 14th, 2025, regarding Moving On Music Festival. The third section of the consent agenda includes two items. CA3A is Resolution R-25-10, recognizing May as Bike Month. CA3B is the Nairhood Stairs bid. So would anyone like to have any of these items pulled for further discussion before the chair entertains a motion to adopt and accept the consent agenda as presented? Looking to the right, looking to the left. Staff's not allowed to pull any. All right, go ahead.
I have several. CA2A, B is in boy,
Okay.
and CA2V is in Victor. And I believe it would be prudent to also pull CA3B as in boy.
All right. I was going to ask for that one, so. All right. If there are no other requests, the chair will entertain a motion to adopt and accept the consent agenda as presented, minus CA2B, CA2V, and CA3B.
So moved.
So moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? I don't think we need any. We're going to pull the items we need to discuss. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Let's go to CA2B. Adam?
Sure. Mr. Gable is a former State College resident and actually still continues to own property here in the borough of State College. He happens to also be the manager of Gettysburg. So I frequently run into him in a variety of places. And he remains on the Fourth Fest Committee. And he has made these requests over the last several years. The suggestion or the question that was asked here in Charles' letter had to do with whether or not we would be sponsoring at the same level as we did last year. If memory serves correctly, we sponsored Fourth Fest, I believe it was at $2,000, possibly at $2,500 last year. And I apologize, I neglected to look that up before I came up this evening. So the question is something in that same range palatable for council again this year? Are we looking to do something different or nothing at all?
Let me toss this out and then we can go around the table. I believe there's tiers of sponsorship, and it might be helpful to us to know what other municipalities did. I mean, this is obviously an event that benefits the very broad community, just because it's hosted here in College Township. But I've noticed other municipalities are listed as sponsors. If
I can get that information.
other requests, what's the deadline?
I think sooner rather than later. I'll work within the next 2 weeks. We'll have something at the next meeting.
So we could, anybody else, anybody, request for any additional information?
It's reasonable.
Or are we just fine with what the manager suggested?
No, I agree with your suggestion, like letting us
See
know
what-
what other municipal.
Put it in context?
To include confirmation of last year,
Yeah.
Sure,
and even
Yeah.
last 3 years, maybe.
Yeah.
will do. That'll be back. We'll probably address that through the manager's update on May 1st. Okay.
CA2V, the soldier's hand.
Yes, I did want to draw council's attention to the fact that we did receive the recognition for the contribution that was made. I also further wanted to share that the email that we received from Trish Schallenberger essentially offered up opportunities to participate as a result of the sponsorship. And the potential difficulty with that, at least from a staff perspective, is the date of May 24th is the Saturday immediately before Memorial Day. And the question that I think is appropriate is to extend this invitation to members of council in terms of interest in participating. And we don't have to decide that this evening, but primarily I wanted to bring that to your attention, that there are several opportunities for members of council to participate. I believe that Katie ended up having a phone conversation with Trish and got some additional detail that may not actually be in the letter. As far as the sponsorship level that we sponsored, we had provided a $500,000, whoa, wow. Whoa, $500 donation. And that included, it's a major designation, and it's recognition on the website, in the brochure, and on the t-shirt. And I know that Katie just this afternoon forwarded our 150th thank you, logo, to Trish for use as part of the event. So I think that that's progressing nicely. She had also made a request about being able to place a poster or a sign relative to the event on the township property here, and I had given her written authorization to do that as part of what we sent back in with the donation. So I believe that it's set to go, but members of council take it under advisement. If there's an interest in directly participating in the event, let I or Katie know, and we can communicate that back with Trish. And that was everything on item B that I had.
Before we open it up for questions, the only thing that I saw in the packet was the thank you letter. I didn't see any reference to anything on May 24th.
Which, again.
It was, it may have been, we had.
Is it in the supplemental?
No, it wasn't. It was, the initial request that
Talked about May
Tracy
24th.
made for the donation. That was
Well,
the
we
initial
pulled
letter
it.
that we received. And then this was the thank you for the donation. Trish is going to write us a handwritten,
Yeah, the original item that we acted upon basically talks about holding the 3rd annual 5K walk to remember our fallen on Saturday, May 24th, from 8 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. at the Military Museum in Boalsburg, and there's a website for more information.
Okay, all right, well then, that helps. And that's not just open to council because of our sponsorship, that's open to anybody, all right? Or do we have another level?
There are slots related to your sponsorship that are available. There's at least 2.
For the 5K?
For the 5K. So if there were 2 members of council that wanted to participate, there wouldn't be a registration fee because of the sponsorship.
Okay. Well, for the record, I'm happy to participate and pay the registration fee, since I'm available, for whatever it is. I appreciate the offer, so if someone else, if I'm the only one and staff wants to take,
Okay.
I would offer the,
If I'm in town, I'll do it. If there's a question, but I'll check that this week. But I would like doing the 5K.
Yep. You can get back to us. If you want to make your own arrangements, that's fine. If we hear nothing, we'll assume that there will be 2 that are there. And we can take a poll amongst staff and find out who's going to be in town, et cetera, and see how that works out. Okay, that's great. Thank you.
thanks, sorry, I didn't, all right, that takes us to the neighborhood stairs bid.
Yeah, Don, I'm going to kick that over to you.
Back in '23, when we were doing the project, the neighborhood stairs were not completed.
Pike Street.
On Pike Street as part of the main project. The reason for that was sort of the timing that the work was getting done. What I've done is designed a set of stairs. They will be ADA compliant. And we went with the quote package because the bid, or the estimate was under
21.
No, 19, do you remember?
Quotes,
Yeah.
12,000.
12,900, yes. So 3 quotes are required if it's over 12,900, up to 23,600. At 23,600, you'd have to go with a bid. Well, my estimate was right around the 12,900, so I sent out to 5 firms. 2 replied, one other replied to say that they weren't going to be submitting a quote. And as it is, the low quoter is at 8,125, so I would have only actually had to get 1 quote. But Land Serv has done work for us before. The pedestrian bridge out in front of the building is one of the projects they've done. I'm very comfortable with awarding it to them. There's quite a range there between the 2, but that's sort of to be expected for a small project where one firm may not really be as busy and needs the work, and another firm would like to get to work if they can make lots of money on it.
So to be clear, the requirement for the number of quotes is based on the actual amount that comes in, not our estimate.
It would be, yes.
So,
I mean, if I estimated it at 6,000 and they come in at 25,000, we would have to reject and say we have to go to bids.
but if your estimate was 25,000 and you thought you were required to get X amount of quotes and it came in at 6, one would suffice.
Yeah, as it is, one would have been fine here.
If we move to accept these remaining 3 items, the motion that's in here would automatically take effect, and we would authorize staff to award the contract to Landserv, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Questions for Don or staff? Anyone? I like the idea that the bid's going to a very local contractor. We're basically reinvesting those dollars right in
Right in the
College
College
Township.
Township, yes.
Yeah, nice. Okay, then if there are no questions, Chair will accept the motion to approve the remaining 3 consent agenda items, CA2B, CA2V, and CA3B.
So moved.
A motion, do I have a second?
Second?
Second? Any discussion needed here? Further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Consent agenda is completed. Takes us to old business. Tonight we have 1 item under old business. A remand review, PSU ARL. Lindsay has managed to simplify this a bit for us, which we appreciate.
Thank you.
Well,
So-
we all did, right?
Yeah. So this is the second time you're reviewing this draft remand, but a few things have happened since. So I wanted to inform you, number one, and Matt mentioned this, at the last council meeting, you remanded to the Planning Commission the Pam Health or Innovation Park East rezoning. And the Planning Commission reviewed the remand and reviewed all of the considerations from council. They also reviewed an analysis that staff prepared, and they acknowledged that the DRI is required for any moving forward with the rezoning. So they were comfortable enough to make a motion at their meeting on Tuesday that the rezoning be approved so long as the DRI is approved. So that's one thing that has happened. Then we had some conversations with Penn State. We were kind of back and forth a few times about the smaller project that they were considering, the expansion, 1 acre expansion for ARL. Talking with them a little bit more, lots of back and forth. They are moving forward with this 1 acre expansion. So what we have done is requested them to submit a formal rezoning request for that 1 acre. So then we'll have all 3 consistent. So we'll have the Innovation Park East, the Innovation Park West, and the ARL 1 acre, or ARL Light, I guess, consistently moving through the same process. Also remember that the DRI has to be approved before the rezonings can be approved. And tonight, we're considering just this rezoning for ARL, or Innovation Park West expansion. So ultimately, they'll be separated as we move forward, and the rezonings are going to be conditioned upon approval of the DRIs. To my knowledge, the DRI for ARL, the larger project, the traffic impact study should be done toward the end of April, early May. And once they get that, they'll officially submit the DRI to Center Regional Planning Agency for them to accept it and deem it complete or not. And I'm not quite sure at this point where that process is with the smaller ARL expansion and with Pam Health. We'll notify Pam Health that the action of the Planning Commission the other night. So in saying all of that and moving forward through this remand that we have in front of you, the Planning Commission felt that, a lot of the considerations that are in this remand were pretty reasonable, and they had a thoughtful discussion on it. So that kind of makes me feel like the considerations for the ARL, or the Innovation Park West, kind of have the same, like they're the same context as the PAM Health. So this language here, down towards the bottom of the remand, proposed revised remand language, we're asking council to review this, and if you feel that it's ready to go, we can remand it to the Planning Commission for their review at an upcoming meeting and move forward for this 62-acre rezoning at Innovation Park West from UPD 14 to Land Research Business Park District.
Thank you, Lindsay. Anything else to add, Mike or Adam? Okay. While this is just a action to move the remand forward, this has been a complicated project, all of these requests coming through and all of these acronyms. And on top of that, some changes since we first tried to understand how they all fit together. So please don't be shy about asking staff for any clarification at this point about the process that we're undertaking. I just want to put that out there. Even for me, who's familiar with this, I've had to stop and think multiple times where we're at and what these changes do to that process. So please don't be shy about taking this opportunity, even though it may not be relevant to the remand. Of course, if you have remand questions, bring them up, but don't be shy about asking Lindsay or staff to review how this fits together. So, Rich?
I was not confused last month. I am confused this month. So, in reading this, so what I'm reading here is that ARL is working with PSU to go into within the existing boundaries of Innovation Park. Is the areas that are within the existing boundaries of Innovation Park not zoned appropriately?
No, they are zoned appropriately. One of the discussions I had, they were thinking that maybe just a corner of the building would come out of the growth boundary and out of the zoning district. But after further consideration, they indicated that they're going to need the whole acre.
Okay. Secondly, if it's in the Innovation, is all of Innovation Park in the growth boundary?
Yes.
Okay. So, we don't need a rezoning, we don't need a DR light for the 1 acre parcel.
Yes, we do.
We do need both.
Yeah, because
Okay.
When the initial request came to council, they had indicated, just as you believe, that they were going to develop this 1 acre warehouse. And the future, amongst the 62 acres that they were requesting for the larger request. Okay, so it was one of the 62 acres.
Yes.
Okay.
Understood that.
Right. After the conversation, there was conversation between Penn State staff and College Township staff about the potential of ARL maybe not needing to use that 1 acre of that 62 acres, and that perhaps they would be able to squeeze this site on the existing, already zoned, already in the growth boundary parcel in the existing park.
Okay.
That, however, is not ultimately what they're going to be able to do, and so they're essentially back to the original request for the 1 acre carve out, that 1 acre being part of the 62 acres.
Okay.
And both of the, and that 1 acre does in fact require both the DRI light and the rezoning.
Okay. That's not how I read the new information. That's why I'm confused.
Okay.
All right, that's my bad.
May I? It
Go ahead.
looks like the memo was written April 10th. And today is the memo we have was written April 10th. And so if there were conversations between April 10th and today, because that's exactly what it says. It says that that will be incorporated. Yeah, and as we were discussing it, I kind of went there too, and I was almost afraid to say something because I've been on that, but, so originally they talked about taking that out and pushing it in, basically pushing it into Innovation Park and getting it out of UPD, and it would be within the regional growth boundary, and it would be in Innovation Park in the PRBD. And then all would be fine, and that would just proceed. But now they're saying, no, we have to bump it back out. And so, did you have further questions? I jumped in on your
No.
opportunity.
Depending on the fact base that
Right.
we're making our decisions on, I'm good with that, because if they were able to do it, then I understand that the 1 acre still needs to, they would still like it considered for rezoning, but as part of the 62 acres. And I further understand that they were going to use DRI heavy for those 62, and the DR light would go back into our pot. But now it's going back to what the original understanding was.
Yeah, so, and I would just add on, and I think Susan captured it very well. At the April 3rd meeting, you know, the discussion has been kind of fluid over the last couple weeks. So at the April 3rd meeting, we were at that point of how the memo reads, that they were going to basically reabsorb this new ARL building into the existing appropriately zoned PRBD within the growth boundary. Since this memo was published, that has changed, and they went back to their original request of basically two things: the 62 acres for what they proposed in terms of the master planning, and part and parcel to that is 1 acre for ARL. So I think you captured it correctly, Susan. I may be muddying the waters again, as I did at the last meeting. So.
And so this was an interim, this was a memo that was written at an interim sort of process after they took away using the rezoning.
We thought this was the final product.
Yeah, and then we met earlier this week with Penn State, and they gave us this more of this information.
That's fine, but me and anybody who's reading this agenda would come to a different conclusion. The question then that I would have, is it 62 acres or is it 61 acres?
Technically, it's 61 acres.
Okay.
And that will be modification that Penn State will need to make in both their rezoning requests for the ARL
Okay.
master plan as well as the DRI heavy.
Sure.
So, other questions? Go ahead.
I think that just all confusing. So they need a DR heavy and a DR light. And can someone explain to me why they need both? And why we don't get to absorb the
So
light
they,
back?
the purpose for the smaller ARL, from what I understand, is that they have some grant funding that ARL wants to move forward with this project faster than it would take for a DRI heavy to move forward through the process. So, like with the Clearwater example, we went through that in just a few months. So, and then I believe the DRI heavy will, it includes a lot more information, a lot more approval by more folks, a lot of review by more folks. So that's why they want to move forward with both of them separately.
It's driven primarily by timing.
Okay, so to what extent does the remand need to be, the remand letter in our packet need to be revised? At least some of the introductory language, correct?
Well, if you start from where it states proposed revised remand language, I feel like that information should still be straightforward.
Okay.
The new information paragraph is,
The only change would be 61 versus 62.
And also taking out the last sentence of the new information paragraph, which says the approach eliminates the need for the separate rezoning. So
The new information is not included in the remand, I think is what
Okay.
Lindsay just said.
completely not, okay.
Yeah.
So are we in a position where we can conditionally forward this on to the planning commission?
Yeah, I mean, I think, if I may, I believe that the few modest writing tweaks that need to be made can be made easily, that the bulk of this memo stands, and it can be forwarded on effectively to, and convey the thoughts here from council to the planning commission in the form of a remand.
Everybody comfortable with that? Go ahead.
May I ask? So a couple of questions. So I'm confused.
Take turns.
It's okay, my turn. So are we remanding a request for PC to review two separate rezonings here? One is the 1 acre now and the DRI light, and then the 62 acre, or it's all 62 acre? Because we're going back and forth on 1 and 62. Because the rezoning of the 62 acres, which would include the 1 acre, requires us to have the regional growth boundary approved by the general forum. It's bringing out the whiteboard.
I know, I'm glad you did that, because I
The
was.
whiteboard.
Okay, this is new
I'm glad
territory
we don't
here.
have, I'm glad we don't have a wrestling championship tonight.
You have not been to PC.
So,
watch.
Susan, with the request tonight, we're gonna stick with the 60, well, now 61 acres, moving that forward, and then Penn State will formally request the rezoning for the 1 acre, and so you'll see that. So ultimately,
So-
there'll be 3 rezones.
So there's basically a small little island of 1 acre that lives in no man's land until we get that request. Okay. And general forum will have to approve the regional growth boundary change for the 62 minus 1 acres.
Yes, exactly.
And if we rezone the 62 minus 1 acres and the general forum does not approve the change in the regional growth boundary, then does the rezoning that we approved as maybe part of this process, if we do, if it's recommended and we approve it, then that rezoning exists without the regional growth boundary change, or reverts back to UPD?
Yeah, it will remain UPD, because to
Okay.
make any changes to the zoning outside of the growth boundary requires a
Are
DRI.
we sure about that?
Are we clear?
Yeah, zoning's ours.
Yeah.
Our growth boundaries, they have a say in. So what we heard with the 5 acres is that planning commission recommended to us to approve the rezoning pending the DRI. Council is not bound by that. Council could rezone that should they decide. Similarly with the 61 acres, they could do that. They can also condition it. I believe they can condition it. I won't go that far. But it is within council's purview to rezone to whatever they deem appropriate, and regardless of DRI.
Right, but I think I sort of have it a different way. I understand why you would do that, but what I'm saying is, why would we rezone?
Because we ultimately think that's the best for the township. That's the only
Right.
reason we would do
Some of us
any
might,
of it.
right, and some of us might, and some of us might not. I mean, that's the question. Am I
That would
missing
be the
something?
consensus of council.
Correct.
That's why we have votes and
Correct.
and
Oh,
all
no,
that.
I
Yeah.
understand that
Yeah, yeah,
process, Rich.
Yeah,
I do.
yeah.
And I might think differently.
I
Well,
agree.
hang on, I don't think anybody is offering an opinion here. I think Rich is trying to articulate
process.
the
Right.
different,
Right,
and there is history here, obviously. Patton rezoned the Geisinger site before they got their DRI. In Rich's example, you could be firm, you could be, not suggesting we are.
Right.
Right.
You could be convinced that that's an appropriate zoning change for that area, whether it has sewer service area or not.
Correct.
So that's what Rich is saying.
Correct.
And that is within our purview. Not suggesting we would go that way, but I think he was just making that clarification.
That's correct.
Right.
Yes, I have not stated a position. I haven't heard from planning
Me
commission on other than the 5 acres.
no, and I do
But
understand that process.
Yeah.
All right,
I don't even know if this is needed, but this is the visual of what we're talking about.
Okay.
So you have the existing Innovation Park
First of all, Adam, I think this is helpful.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
I'm a visual.
Dig
It's
in.
not tape on the ground, but it's the next step.
I'm a visual learner.
This is why we opened this up for this discussion, so.
So you have the existing, what's already up there, Penn Stater's over here. This is the existing Innovation Park facility. And what you have is the proposal from Pam, which is, this is supposed to represent 5 acres of a larger tract that is owned by Penn State, which isn't factoring into any of these conversations at the moment. Okay, so you have Pam, we've taken care of Pam. This is going to be, because of the size of the ED, number of EDUs, it's eligible to utilize the DRI-like process. So Pam has undertaken, is in process of that. This is what Lindsay earlier reported out, that the Planning Commission has reviewed and said, subject to the DRI process being completed and approved, they would also approve the rezoning to PRBD. So basically, assuming that the DRI light is completed and approved with Planning Commission's actions, Pam is taken care of.
Okay.
Flipping over to the other end, the western end.
Can I go back to the other end? Doesn't council have to take action to rezone it?
Absolutely.
Okay, that wasn't in your spiel.
I'm sorry, I just assumed, that you're absolutely correct, I know, should not do that, but yes, council obviously needs to do both.
Yes.
They need to approve both the DRI and the rezoning. So council has domain or prerogative over these approvals.
So the process is what's checked off. We've got started
That-
that
We're
process.
within the process.
Yes.
Yeah.
With the assumption, of course, that it gets done. The western portion of the request originally was for 62 acres. This little carve-out represents 1 acre, of which ARL wants to put the, what do we call it? It's a warehouse facility, I'm sorry, just couldn't come up with it, on 1 acre. In this particular case, they want to move quickly. The DRI light, because of the size, there's only going to be 1 or 2 EDUs total here, is very appropriate to be utilized for this small of a property. Regardless of the square footage of the building they ultimately build, this all traces back to how many EDUs are going to be required.
The DRI light is the appropriate, is what you're
It's
saying.
the appropriate. So, the remand tonight is to acknowledge that this is the request that they're going forward with, that Penn State is going to move forward with. They would perform the DRI light, and they're requesting rezoning for this, because at the moment, it falls outside of the current PRBD boundary. So assuming, in similar fashion as to what happened to Pam, they complete the DRI light, and assuming the Planning Commission reviews, makes a recommendation back to council, same situation as Pam, council has the prerogative and the authority to approve both the DRI light and the rezoning for the warehouse facility on the 1 acre for ARL. The remaining 61 acres had originally been discussed as 62 acres prior to the carve-out of the 1 acre.
But before it was out, then it was
Then
in, and now it's out again.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this is a much larger lift, and it will require many more EDUs than what are available within the DRI light process. And as a result, they will go through a full-blown DRI, or a DRI heavy, as we have, in our nomenclature. So this is yet to come really to us, other than authorization by council to proceed with the DRI heavy process. We have not yet received a request for rezoning of what is now the 61 acres.
That's what what we're talking about tonight. We have yet to get the request for the 1 acre.
Okay, we need the one,
Yeah.
my
Yes.
apologies.
Just flip them, that's it.
Okay, so we have the request for 60, well,
62.
which right now, technically, they're requesting 62.
Right.
It's really 61 because of the way that they want to handle this one other acre. But we do need the rezoning request for the 1 acre.
Exactly,
Okay.
which we just asked for today.
Rich?
Right, so I would just offer, even if we could do the 61 acres under DRR light, which I don't think we could have, we shouldn't. That's not what that process is for.
Agreed.
Big chunk of property like that, that needs to go through the DRI heavy. The other side, I think it is appropriate if we can remand the 61 acres as soon as possible, because the DRI heavy is a longer process, and that's another block checked on the path, if that's gonna move forward. And again, if, and on all of these and everything. And we need that specific request for the one, and it would be good if they put in the reason that we're requesting this separate is da-da-da-da.
Okay.
I think that would be beneficial.
Great.
And then we've already talked and indicated to them support for the DRI light when it was in before, or when it was out, before it was in, before it was back out. Yes.
So sorry.
No, you're fine.
Yep. So, yeah, thank you.
All right.
Well, yeah, I mean, others, this has been helpful. I have to tell you, if I was Penn State, I'd have done it a little differently. I'd have got the zoning request in for the 1 acre right with the other 62, but I'm guessing those are different people involved there, is that why? All right, you don't have to answer that.
Yeah.
Susan?
I think I just echo that. I think this has created an awful lot of confusion, and in particular, just in the 2-week period since the last meeting when we asked for clarification, there was another change back and forth. So I'm still not 100% clear, but I understand the process that we're doing now, which is remanding a request to PC, and that is the logical next step.
Yeah, but I wanted to use the opportunity to get, we have a somewhat light agenda tonight. Let's make sure everybody understands as this moves forward what they're asking. And just to reiterate what Rich said, they did come in and float these both to us, and if we had real serious heartburn over any of them, it would have probably stopped there. And the second piece is the Planning Commission remand and the full DRI is another vetting process that will gather and bring back to us a lot more data and information for us to use as it comes back to us. So, we're not expected to form final opinions at this stage. Just just understand the process and keep it moving, since it would be disingenuous I think, of us to not move the remand to Planning Commission, since we did give them a general thumbs up.
Right, to move forward with the process.
And invest in the DRI.
Exactly, yeah.
Doesn't mean we are going to ultimately, we're not guaranteeing approval of anything.
Nope.
We're saying it merits enough further investigation and review for you to invest the time in the process, correct?
Conceptually, we're not opposed
Yes.
to it at this time.
So at the end of this meeting, at least we should all understand the concept, which is what I was after with this agenda item. So, other questions? Matt?
I just have a clarification. At the beginning, Lindsay, you said the traffic study. I remember when we first heard the 1 acre, there was a lot of discussion about that, putting a gate there. Is that part of the traffic study?
That was part of the land development plan for the one research building that was in the growth boundary and ready to go, 335 Innovation Boulevard. So that really, I mean, in the master plan grand scheme of things, yeah, that will come in, but no, it's not a part of this right now.
Thank you.
And to answer the broader question, the traffic study is part of the DRI.
Yes,
It's a required element of the DRI.
yes, it is.
So we'll get that data as part of the DRI. Rich?
No, in that case, am I correct that on the master plan, it showed it as a future public one? And in response, they said, we're gonna make it a private.
Yeah, so add one more thing into the mix as we go through will
Yep.
be a master plan update approval. So, yeah,
Yep.
Yeah,
More
that's
to come.
Innovation Boulevard you're
Correct.
speaking of.
Yeah.
yeah.
It was originally planned to extend out, now they want it to be a driveway instead of a public street.
Exactly.
Adam, that was very helpful.
Yes.
Thank you, Adam.
Award-winning.
We've just come to expect that kind of. Yes. All right. There's still a potential action item, if everyone's comfortable, we can move to move to send the majority of the body of this letter to Planning Commission as part of a remand, if there's general comfort there. With any necessary edits as a result of this revelation that we got here tonight?
Yeah, sorry about all the back and forth. It was just bad timing with conversations. But I can change the 62 down to the 61 acres in the remand, if that's what council.
Is staff looking for a motion and to remand this?
Subject to the modification.
Right.
So if there's something you would like to see added to the remand, subtracted, emphasized, or rewritten, now is the time, because I think most of the edits have been, don't apply to the 5 items listed under key considerations. And again, these are very similar to the last remand.
Yes, they are.
Mr. Chair, I would move that we remand the rezoning request for the modified 61 acres at Innovation Park West to the Planning Commission.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Now, discussion on the motion. Everybody understand what we're doing? Then the chair will call for a vote. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Sounded like somebody was dialing in to vote.
Well, I would have asked for comment, but there really isn't anybody here.
I don't know
to
if you
comment.
heard, somebody's phone vibrated over
Oh.
here, so I thought they were
That
dialing.
wasn't mine.
They were dialing in their vote. They were dialing in their vote.
All right. Well, then that concludes our old business. It takes us to new business. Tonight, we have 2 items under new business. NB1, the Lamont street signs. All of you saw the request for this item to be pulled, but I had a chance to talk to Sue earlier today and explain to her that we needed to take advantage of this meeting to review all the extensive amount of information that staff has brought to us, so we have a better understanding of exactly what they're requesting and what our options are under the PennDOT requirements. And so that's what we have in here. Sue was fine with that, by the way. But I thought we would, in all likelihood, probably not take action tonight, because I wanted to use this as an opportunity to prepare us for any potential future action on this. Mike, did you want to?
I'll let Dawn lead out. We'll tag team if as needed.
All right.
Okay, as you said, Eric, we received a request from the Lamont Village Association requesting to use the signs that they have in their possession, which were the historic signs of Lamont. They're black street signs with white lettering. They still have some in their possession. There's actually 2 intersections that still have them, up Mary and, I can't remember,
Well,
Cherry.
at the
Alley.
light, Elmwood and Pike. I believe there's a black sign right there.
Yeah, well, those are actually new ones down there. Those were put in when the historic streetlights were put in. But there's up in the village itself, there's two intersections that still have the old signs. But anyhow, they have those in their possession. They'd like to put them back up, have us do that as part of the 150th sesquicentennial celebration. And staff has reviewed their request, and for us, one of the biggest problems is the fact that that is not an allowed use or sign style per the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, which is a Federal Highway Administration document. It sets the standards for the whole country. PennDOT then piggybacks on those standards, and that's in their publication 212. Black with white letters is not permitted. I would point out that they do have 3 color schemes available. A blue background with white lettering, brown background with white lettering, and a white background with black lettering. But the MUTC also notes that if you're going to change your sign style and color combo, you're to do that basically for the whole municipality. How rigid they are on that, it appears that actually the borough may have done that for some places, but not the entire the borough. So it may not be a absolute guideline, but based on the information on the signs, staff is not recommending to permit this at this time. We
Permit
would-
the request.
Yeah,
as
permit the
presented.
request with the
color
black
scheme.
with white lettering.
Right. So the memo goes on to speak of an alternative option. I wanted to stop before we got into that and just frame, that hasn't been an ask. At this point, it was just a point of clarification that something other than the green signs with the white lettering is permissible in the area. But again, that hasn't been a formal ask from LVA. It was just a clarity item based on a follow-up email that I had with Sue.
Okay, thanks, Mike and Don. And actually, that was kind of a roundabout ask by council. Is there anything that we could do that met the spec, that might appeal to them? So I appreciate, and just for clarification, the numbers that were provided in here that are associated with your example aren't tied to any one of those 3 color combinations.
No, what we proposed in here, just strictly because blue with white lettering and white with black lettering could conceivably be confused with other typical street signs. Really, it's, if there was some interest in advancing, the brown with white makes the most logical sense. But in terms of the actual project, it doesn't matter what color the sign is, that would be the cost. Yeah, and time frame.
And that is an estimate to 28 signposts. That's based on the mapping we have, but roughly 28 in what we would call the village, which actually extends a little bit beyond what the historic designations are.
Okay, so the purpose of keeping this on the agenda was for us to get a full understanding of what is allowed from PennDOT so that we can address the request from that standpoint. And any questions we have possibly about the options. And I'll say this and then we can open it up. As part of the first question, what is allowed? It sounds as though PennDOT requires or suggests that the signs be consistent through the entire municipality. Clearly, that's not the case in the borough. But it kind of sounds like if the LVA was interested in one of the options and was supported by here, we could conceivably try to implement it in some subsection of the township.
I believe that is accurate.
Okay. I wasn't asking for a full commitment.
Yeah,
I
no,
was
I-
teasing out what I was
Yeah.
kind of getting from your, it's a requirement, but, okay.
Yeah, the UTCD language says should. It
Okay.
doesn't say shall. So there may be
Alright.
some built-in flexibility there.
Okay, well, that helps. Others, Rich, questions on either of those?
Yeah, well, I appreciated the conversation about the federal standard dropping to the state standard, and Pike Street is actually a township road at this point.
Correct.
It comes down to that as well. So I think that's an important basis, that we're all subject to that standard. I do agree with the should versus shall. I think we do have that leeway, and knowing what the borough did, they did it based on their neighborhoods, and everything. And clearly Lamont Village is a special neighborhood, and everything. The one question I had was, you indicated that some of the old black and white signs are still up. What is the criteria? Is it that as long as they're still serviceable, it's kind of like a non-conforming structure kind of thing?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So understanding that, when those go to get replaced, they
would
can't be
right now,
replaced
they
in
would be
kind?
green and white.
Yeah, they can't be replaced in kind.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
So they're grandfathered in as a non-conforming,
Pretty much. We're
That
we're
term,
not out
yeah.
changing signs. We have other things that we need to be doing.
Yeah. So, and then finally, I think before we even give any remote thought, we need to firm up the estimate. And this is not for, it just does, it seems too much for 25, but 2025, but just about.
Susan?
So I'm still a little unclear about the existing signs, the historic signs that are there. So if I'm understanding, those signs, were they put back up after the Pike Street work was done? They were there, they came down for the
No,
Pike
the
Street
one,
work?
the signs out at Pike and Elmwood, they were just left in place.
Okay,
The ones that are up in, and I think it's Mary and Barry, they've just been there. They haven't been hit yet. So they have,
That's very true. I mean, the reason they're, over time, either through deterioration of the units themselves, the
Right.
signs themselves, or the poles, is the reason why these have typically been replaced. The other reason, the rationale why they have been replaced in some circumstances has been various construction projects that have been undertaken in the vicinity that necessitated removal, and the replacements were made to conform with the balance of what the township was using. Okay, so those are the two primary reasons why the existing signs, of which there's still two, in the interior of the village, up the mountain, why those are still in existence. Because there hasn't been a need to remove them for construction purposes, and they haven't been damaged, and they are relatively serviceable.
okay. And so there are two up on the mountain, am I right, there's still two on Pike Street? Am I right or wrong about that?
The ones in Pike Street are right at the intersection with Elmwood.
Right. So there's actually 4 of the historic signs are still there. The rest are signs that
Well,
were.
the ones at Elmwood and Pike are actually the new style, just a flat sheet with the lettering on it, whereas there's the two intersections in the village are the raised letters,
Raised,
almost
sort
like
of- almost like a
cast
thinner-
iron or
Right.
a
Yeah,
cast aluminum signs.
And then the ones that are being held by the LVA now are the ones that are like the ones on the mountain. They're the ones with
Yes,
the borders.
I believe
Okay.
so. I believe they were managed to save most of the older signs
see.
as they were getting replaced.
Okay.
Actually, on Day of Caring, I got to see all those at the greenery.
So the signs that are out now are the ones that are compliant with PennDOT regulations, and those are green with white,
Green
and
with
they are
white,
the same
yeah.
as, so there's some different signs still up, so there's not a consistent signage in the village proper. And the signs that are still there, there's also something about the, not just the color, but also the reflectivity. So how does that factor into this?
Well, there's existing older signs that are up, they don't meet the requirement.
Right, and they can't be, I think, was there some discussion of some sort of refiguring, applying some sort of reflective coating on them that would bring, I
I
mean,
don't know that.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, the
I
initial
just wanna
request
clarify
spoke
that.
to repainting the signs with reflective paint. That wouldn't meet the retro reflectivity standards.
Right.
And the prospect of sheeting those signs, I think, is just absolutely problematic to get them to actually conform to the
Yeah.
contours. Yeah,
Right.
It would fail.
right.
So if I'm is one of the one of the options would be something like to use the white background with the black lettering across all of the village, so the signs would all be consistent, or do something like that, and then also, are we proposing to leave the signs that are currently there? Okay,
That's actually for us to
okay,
talk about it. And let me clarify. The idea was to gauge council's appetite, first of all, for doing anything, understanding then also if we were, what the approximate cost would be and what the options would be. And
Go ahead.
but staff has made it perfectly clear that everything that the LVA has suggested will not meet the PennDOT spec. And so they've taken that one step farther and said, here are the color schemes with reflectivity that will meet. So if there is an appetite here to consider this further, possibly share those with the LVA, those options that meet the spec. And if they're interested in any of those, then it would come back to us for a final decision. If there is no interest or no appetite, after we hear all of this, then there isn't.
yep,
And that was all I was going to add there, Eric, and you framed it well, is, that alternative hasn't been formally requested. It's just,
Right.
we've teased that out a little bit more
I
for
mean,
you.
staff did kind of what we hinted at the last
Yep.
meeting. Is there something close to what you're asking for that meets the spec?
Yep.
It's kind of close. It's not black, but it's either brown or white, or what was the other?
and the reason I asked that is because in one of the correspondences, there was a statement that the planner, the borough planner, had suggested looking at some of the precedent in the borough, that the different neighborhoods had different signage, but they were all conforming with those PennDOT requirements. It just happened to be that one neighborhood had the different colors, but, so there's the conforming signs, and then whether they're consistent across the township or not, that's the issue.
Yeah, and I forgot to mention that. We'd also have to not only have an appetite, but be comfortable with a different set of signs and a subset of the township, like the borough.
Yep.
So, Tracy, any of this making sense to you?
It makes sense, but I want to know, like, why they're asking.
I think realistically, and
Yeah.
I don't want to speak on Sue's behalf, but my understanding is it's about the historic aesthetic. That they would like to have something that, one, contributes to the character and has that historic look. And unfortunately, what their ask is, with reusing the old signs in the black and white combination, black background with white lettering, is not allowable under the standard that we have to abide by.
So the reference, they made a request in 2018. Am I saying that correctly?
Well,
Couple times.
They reference,
yeah, I'm actually holding in my hand
Okay.
requests that date back to 1998, and again in 1999. And there
So the-
have been multiple requests that have been
Okay.
made over that intervening time period for the reinstallment, if you will, of the black cast iron signs. So
Well-
this has been an ongoing matter and obviously an issue for the LVA for many years.
So where I respect the request, we able to talk about? I'm able to say something?
Well, let's just say,
It's gonna be about why I don't feel we need to entertain it.
entertain it any further. Yeah, well, that's what we're trying to
Yes.
gauge tonight.
So this, like, right, I respect the request, I respect, the ask, but I also respect the fact that staff has indicated we can spend the money differently, and on something else. I do respect history and wanting that, but I feel like if the money can be allocated to something else that's more needed, then signage, I don't see I'm just saying, I just don't see the importance. I think there is other things that we can entertain. I'm not seeing the importance of that right now.
Okay, then, just to be clear, would that be in the context of the village and the 150th, saying that we could invest in something? Is there something else that,
I think maybe, is there a way we can display the signs if we want to somewhere else within the village? But going and changing all the signs, I don't think that that's the fiscally responsible thing to do.
okay, we would only be considering the changes within the village, not the
Yes,
entire.
right,
Okay.
right, I completely understand that. But I'm just wondering, is there somewhere else we can display them that doesn't require money to be spent?
Something like an off-street display somewhere, maybe on the village green
Yep.
or in the post office.
Well, I was thinking the post office.
That kind of a thing, I
Right.
think is what is being suggested.
Kind of like memorialize them and that could, like where it's ongoing, where it doesn't cost us anything, but it's still representative of the historical signage that was there. That's just my thoughts as I'm listening to everything.
Okay, well, we need to get to that tonight. So Tracy has kicked it off. Susan, Rich, thoughts? I'm gauging appetite for moving forward with this.
I mean, I see your point. I had actually thought about that, Tracy, with the historic signs being displayed somewhere else. The middle ground, and I do see value at this price to, if they want to, if there's some appetite for signifying that historic neighborhood, that designated historic neighborhood, as a separate entity during this time, or even at any other time, I would be supportive of that, because that is a unique neighborhood feature. So I would be, but I understand where you're coming from.
Okay, Rich?
Yeah, I don't support in 2025. I support exactly what you said. The village district is unique. And I have seen firsthand in the borough how they take a lot of pride in its neighborhood designations and everything. We've gone a long way to make the village special versus everything. So I do support that. I don't support in 2025. I don't think it's astronomical number, but that's not the hard number. And so what I could see is if we say that we support something different, that it be implemented as the existing signs need replaced or in blocks, blocks that make sense, and everything. That helps, especially with staff involved in the installation and everything, that it respects the bandwidth of staff and priorities and everything like that. So I could support something like that. I could support not doing anything. I don't have overly, either way. The price doesn't faze me. The concept of identifying the borough doesn't, or the village doesn't faze me. But I want to see it respectful for the rest of things.
Okay, see if we can find some common thread here moving forward. Just to be clear, for any support there is for moving forward, either incrementally or whatever, would have to meet the PennDOT spec, and would have to be one of the choices that meet the PennDOT spec.
Yep.
So would there be support then for telling staff to throw back to LVA officially the options that would meet the PennDOT spec, with the understanding that even if they said yes, the current temperature of council is not necessarily to support that until we get a better idea of the cost. And potentially, based on the cost, there seems to be maybe support for a phased or incremental approach. I'm trying to grab a little bit from everybody that there isn't consensus to move forward and support at this point any of those options, even, you know, as they've been presented. However, if the LVA is open to one of the options that meets the spec, council may consider a phased approach depending on the cost or resources involved. I'm trying to get three different opinions around.
If this year, because it's it's just a difficult word to say. Because it is that, if we can find a space for those to be displayed.
Oh, and that's the other piece. As we throw back to them, that's a good point. As we throw it back to them, is there something else that council could rally around that respects the signs or whatever we're trying to do here that they would like council to consider?
Is there any reason that they couldn't do on their property? The concern, depending on how they do it, it could potentially create confusion. That would be my only concern. But at the end of the day, is there anything that would prevent them doing that on their own property?
Like the green.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess,
I mean, there would be, and Mark can correct me, but no.
Well, they're less than 3 square feet in size, which is exempt by our ordinance.
Yeah, but there's 28.
Right. I mean, I think there's a reality there to that. I mean,
Yeah.
if someone was going to take the time to create a display on the village green, where precisely would you do that on the village green and not
Right.
interfere with all the other activities that they have, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, there are some logistical issues with
Sure.
those types of
And
things.
if it were to be on the or in the post office property, that would
That's-
require our approval.
That is township property,
Right.
and that would require our actions.
Right.
okay. Then is there general consensus to direct staff to go forward with the response as I tried to characterize it? No guarantees, possible conditional, incremental or phased approach, depending on a couple of things.
A definite maybe.
And also openness to entertaining other ways the council could support or enhance the village during the 150th anniversary celebration.
Yes.
I think the proposed next step makes good sense, and it doesn't promise any particular outcome,
Right.
but it opens up the next step, and I think that's a good idea.
That's what I was aiming for.
There you go. And I think
and
that
it-
next step is a good step.
Yeah, and it might be, no, we want the antique ones, and if we can't get that, we're not gonna do anything.
Yeah,
And that's for them to decide.
Right.
Exactly.
so it leaves open all those possibilities. And so at this point, there's no action really to be taken. I think staff has enough direction. And depending on that response from LVA, the chair will get together with staff and decide if this warrants inclusion in a future agenda item. That concludes our first new business item. That takes us to our annual PSATS resolution and nominations discussion and action. I will say that this might be the shortest list of PSATs.
Ever.
Yeah, I'm somewhat surprised about this.
I kept looking for the pages that were missing.
Well, when they came through, I thought the same thing. We're clearly missing about half a dozen pages front and back, but that doesn't seem to be the case. For those of you that may not be familiar, as part of the annual educational conference, that's going to be occurring May 4th through the 7th in Hershey for the Pennsylvania State Association of Township Supervisors organization. Part of that annual process is basically taking membership votes on various resolutions that kind of create the work plan for the organization itself. And these various proposals, these resolutions that are listed here, that will be voted on in this upcoming meeting, were all generated through a variety of different means. The primary means is through local county, individual county associations. We have a CCATO spring meeting that's coming up, I believe that is the 29th. It's going to be held at Patton Township Building from 5 to 7 or 8. So it's a little bit different format than what it has been in some past years, and at a different location. And a lot of the resolutions usually have come out of the fall meetings of those county associations. And they get run through a process, and that ultimately the resolutions board, which is comprised of elected officials from around the state, determine whether or not the organization will ultimately support that resolution or oppose that resolution to the membership. And then it's up to the membership to take a vote. And in those cases where resolutions are being opposed, it's incumbent upon the initial sponsor of that resolution to come forward and make a case and an argument to gain a second, to have a floor debate on that particular resolution for consideration by the entire group. So these are actually become very important in terms of the workaday requirements for the PSAT's staff. And we have about 4 pages of these tonight to review.
Well,
Mr. Chair, we can do this
Yeah, let me-
at your leisure.
We, over the years, we have attacked this in many different ways.
Yes, we have.
I think what I've learned through all of those is I would like to first go to staff, because that's what we do for a lot of things, and ask staff if they disagree with any of the support or opposed motions. And then since Susan is our representative, go back to her instead of doing what we usually do, which is boom, boom, through them all. So have you guys had a chance to look at these to the extent that you would shape an opinion one way or the other?
There's a couple that I would provide some comment on.
Okay.
Actually, I happen to be on the manager-secretary committee, and that's the other way that resolutions end up being produced is through the various committees that comprise the PSAT's operation. And committees have the same ability as the county associations to create a resolution and pass it on. So on page 2, there's a resolution 25-13. Someone that you know fairly well actually made this particular motion, that PSAT seek legislation to amend the Consolidated County Assessment Law to require every county to conduct a reassessment every 10 or 20 years. Okay? The Resolutions Committee opposed that, and they opposed it because the committee felt that it was not a township issue. That it was not a township issue, and did not want to place an unfunded mandate on another local government. I have to tell you, that is perhaps the lamest explanation for opposing something that I think I've ever read in a PSAT's resolution committee opposition statement. That said, I also want to draw your attention immediately below that to 24-14, another item, whoops, no, wrong one. Where'd it go? Oh, they changed it on me. Oh, I lost it. 1 second. There was a second resolution that was approved by the committee that I'm not seeing here. And you know what? We may not have a complete list, folks. There was a second resolution that was adopted by the manager secretary committee that basically asked for, to require counties to accept video arraignments.
Oh, yeah, that's
Is it in here? Where's it at, Mike?
2522.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, that threw me off. I glanced over it. Anyway, if you read the explanation there, that one is supported. PSAT-seek legislation to require counties to accommodate online arraignments upon request of the municipal police department. That was supported. I mean, if there was something that was gonna create an obligation, this is an obligation. And the committee outright supported this one as opposed to opposing 25-13 relative to the mandatory assessment. Now, as a manager, as an administrator, there's no question that county assessment plays a very key role in the life of a municipality, given the fact that for many, many municipalities, College Township may be an exception, but for many, many municipalities, real estate property tax, which is derived through the assessment process, is one, if not the only, source of revenue that local municipalities have in order to pay for the services that they provide. And for the committee, the resolutions committee, to take this position, I think it's an unconscionable position myself. So, that said, I have spoken with the chair of the Secretary Managers Committee, Mr. Kelly from West Manchester Township. And I've indicated that I would be more than happy as a member of the committee to go with at least one other member of the committee to the floor to bring this up, to have this considered. What I don't know is I don't know the process for having an opposed committee resolution brought to the floor for a vote. So I'm not sure what that process looks like, but I can find out. But I believe that this is a very easy support as opposed to the recommended oppose on this. So, and again, I think that the resolution committee contradicted itself with that second, the second resolution that came out of the Secretary Manager Committee by supporting that, because that clearly imposes a cost to another jurisdiction de facto. Anyway,
All right, questions for Adam on what he's,
rambling on about.
for context, do we know when the last time our county did an assessment?
94.
Okay, so we're about 30 years, we are 30 years away from our last assessment. And the original resolution was 10, proposal was 10 or 20.
There's gotta be some definitive time.
Right, so in this case, even 20 would have captured a situation like ours.
That's true.
All right, Susan, did that one stand out to you at all, or?
I didn't even pick up on it, so thank you for bringing it up. But based on your explanation, I agree with what you're saying. And I do think, I mean, I hadn't, honestly, I hadn't looked at these as closely as I have in years past. I was looking at the other things we had on the agenda tonight. So, yeah, I mean, I'm supportive of, I don't know what the process exactly is, but I can see why opposing this would not make sense. And it does concern me that we go for such a long period of time without a reassessment, because the reassessment could be a difficult reckoning. Very difficult reckoning.
As it is right now, I mean, it's either under court order or absolute dire necessity that counties.
On a case-by-case basis, right?
Yeah, on a
Property by-
case-by-case basis. I mean, there are some counties that have implemented a standard for reassessment every 5 or 10 or 15 years or more. But they have a process that they have followed for some period of time. The vast majority of counties do not. And as a result, it is not done on any kind of a consistent basis, which makes the process absolutely 100% a political process when the time comes, which is why no one wants to do a reassessment.
Yeah.
If there was language inserted into the county code where there was a requirement, or even if there was a need to make an amendment to the Pennsylvania Constitution to conform a period of time where these reassessments would take place, that would absolutely eliminate 100% of the political process. And it certainly, I think, inures to everybody's benefit. In particular, the county commissioners, in my opinion.
Other thoughts? This seems to be the one, were you going in order, or were you going by the ones that gave you
No,
the
I
most
just,
heart?
I just hit the ones I knew about.
We've done by exception.
So I would agree and disagree, I suppose. I understand the unfunded mandate, because as Susan has alluded to, it's a lift. And then, as far as taking the politicians off the hook, yeah, they're absolutely correct. No one wants to be responsible for the tax increase, but hey, if it's an unfunded mandate that you do it, it kind of takes you off the hook. On the other hand, if the county doesn't feel they can make ends meet with 50-year-old assessments, who are we to tell them any different? So I can go either way. But I do like the idea of taking the county commissioners off the hook and bringing some conformity or some standard statewide. I assume that's why it was originally put forth, right? That the municipalities felt that unless they put something in place, the county was never going to undertake
Right.
it, and they were never going to get
I mean,
any relief.
You know, I know that we have people that work in various property issues that serve on council, and I think that they may even be able to attest to the fact that it's not necessarily in property owners' best interests to forego a reassessment for 20 or 30 or 40, or in the case of Blair County, up until 2 to 3 years ago, 54 years.
Yeah. So the upside to that is you could cite some examples right here in College Township where people appealed and got a lower assessment.
Absolutely. I mean, I think.
Isn't necessarily an automatic tax increase as much as it is a market adjustment.
That's correct.
And I'm looking to the,
Yeah, absolutely. Interesting, just general note, a couple of ones, along with we're getting in the county's business, overly broad. I mean, the majority of these could be considered overly broad, so that is a reason for rejection. It's just a little funny to me. But the reassessment is, as a survivor of the 1994 reassessment, it's painful. But the technology has made it a lot better. I mean, you just think about appraisals of your home. I mean, for your last mortgage, they probably never stepped foot in your home, kind of thing. And so that's where they're going with that. The 94, they touched every property. They were standing in it and all that good kind of stuff. The other, you actually touched on it with the appeals. They are through the roof.
Yeah.
They are through the roof. Appeals are through the roof because it's now the scale has tipped to where it's not a good reflection of the market and everything. And so in any reassessment reassessment, you have winners and losers. You know, some properties are being overassessed, some are being underassessed. And so that balances scale. As I recall, the Reassessment Act does not allow a windfall for the county.
Yeah, I'm out of my league in that one.
Yeah,
That
I'm pretty,
I don't know.
yeah, in the year of the implementation of the reassessment, it does not allow for a windfall. It basically resets the millage and, you know, it gives an opportunity to reset that so it doesn't just keep getting insane, kind of thing. So there's a couple, you can argue both ways, but my personal opinion, it's the right thing to do.
Okay, so we support the manager's opposition to the opposition.
Yeah.
All right. Does the manager have any other thoughts on any of the other ones?
There were none that kind of leapt off the page to me at this point. I, like Susan, I have not scrubbed this with a great deal of detail. I was made aware of those two from the manager secretary committee, but I have no others to bring forward here tonight, council.
Okay. Well, if something jumps out at us, we are going to squeeze a meeting in before
Yeah.
PSATs. Not that I want to necessarily add anything to the May 1 agenda, but if we have a chance to look at it and somebody really wants to discuss, is it May 1?
And I'll get a chance to go back through.
I'll scrub it.
and, yeah.
And there are quite a few that we're not to vote on, that our size excludes us from being considered. There's townships 5 to 10,000 or less than 2,000, so those aren't resolutions that we would be voting on, correct?
Well, they would affect the entire work program for the organizations.
Okay.
So they're put forward by those committees for the
I see,
consideration of the
okay,
whole.
okay, so I understand that better. I have one question, and it's a little, it's within this, I think within the topic, it's just not around our decisions on the resolutions. Mr. Malat, when he resigned his position on UHAA, made a point about the forms that need to be completed and the personal information that is available for public viewing on the form we're required by the state to complete. And he compared that to an analogous document that the federal government uses that includes less personal information. His concern, I think, was name, the finances, and address might be used together for ID theft. So is this something that we would consider proposing as a potential resolution to be considered in the future? And does that go through the county association? Is that something to bring there?
I would say yes. I
Okay.
mean, any to the state ethic changes, modifications to elements of the state ethics law, yeah, I think that would be the appropriate
Through the
mechanism.
county.
Work through the association, yes.
Well, and I guess then I would be gauging the temperature of council for that discussion with the county.
Well, I'll start off because we've had this discussion, just so everybody understands. We're talking about the ethics forms that we all have to fill out, hopefully already did and submitted. Have we?
May 1,
Nope.
Oh,
May 1.
The forms we are going to do when we get home tonight and email
I did mine.
Katie. Okay.
I gave you copies tonight.
Right.
You'll get mine April 30th, the same as every year.
So, the concern was one of our ABC members has elected to resign instead of providing that information. So in our discussion about this, we initially thought, really, that's not within our purview to even discuss or debate this. However, if it is the feeling of this body that that kind of requirement will hamper our ability to recruit or retain otherwise, folks who are otherwise interested in serving on ABCs, then maybe we ought to talk about it. And that's enough for me to at least consider floating it at PSATs. If there's another document that would be less intrusive to someone, at least ask.
I mean, clearly, the document that's in use was designed before the prevalence of
Exactly.
identity theft. You know, I'm sure that if it were to be redesigned today, or to be designed today, they may take a very different approach to it. So I think it's very appropriate to at least float it and see if there's any support at our county level, and if so, then it will move on through the process.
Any objection to that? It's an antiquated form, much like the assessments.
It just, to me, it reeks of in the military, you had to use your social security number for everything when they did away with your military number and everything. And, you know, I had people coming through the chow line that, you know, do you want to eat? You need to put your social security number on that. I'm sorry, that's the process. But, so is it a necessary evil? I mean, the reason that we have the form, do we all know why?
Oh, it's good.
Yeah, is it a necessary evil, but is there another mechanism to accomplish the same things that it's intended to accomplish?
That's a good point.
I think that's relative. And then I'm always a part of the solution versus just, hey, I don't like this form.
Right.
You know, okay, how do we change it to accomplish what needs to be accomplished without doing what the bad stuff is?
Right.
Well, and I think that I appreciate that, and I think that's what I appreciate about Mr. Malat's resignation letter, is that he did try to propose a solution, and he did make the comparison to the federal form, which is an analogous form that could be used in the same way, that didn't require the level of information that the state form was requiring.
I'm curious, have you reviewed that form?
I have not reviewed the
Okay.
form.
It's a federal form. Yeah, so.
So I think
It's not friendly.
Okay.
It's just another form of unfriendly, and as the ethics form. So it's.
So we'll leave the federal form out of it for now. Our point is there a more secure way to capture information that identifies potential conflicts of interest, which is really what it's after?
Right.
And without handwriting personal information that then has to be transposed into something, I'm guessing, where
No, actually, it doesn't.
It sits in a file?
It does.
Okay.
It does. It sits in, yeah.
It does, they remain essentially under lock and key here at the township, and they're available for inspection. And they're also available to be audited.
Yes.
Well, and I do think that it's important to recognize that this could be a barrier to getting good candidates for ABC. To your point, if you want to do it, this is what you have to do, but we're in a different time now. People are much more concerned about whether or not it goes into a file. Could it be moved from that file? Could it be accessed? It is part of the public record. That's why we have it, is to show that we don't have a conflict. So at some point, it could be pulled and made public. So I'm not saying I have the solution, but I think it's part of the idea of moving towards the solution. And I would hope that a better mind than mine would review the forms that would be appropriate. I'm not the best mind to judge the federal form versus the state form. But in the process of moving it forward, we might be able to find somebody who is better able to do that for us. So.
Yeah, it ignores other realities. And again, going back to my example of the social security number to get food, there's so many ways that those can come out now. I mean, we read about it. Unfortunately, we read about it all the time, you know, identity theft and all that kind of stuff. They're not gonna break into your drawer versus get onto something online and everything. So the concern is, are we really mitigating the concern?
We'll find out with the process.
I think we're just trying to identify the fact that it potentially
Oh, I
could be
get it.
hampering our
I
ability.
get it, but I'd rather also not take a knee-jerk reaction to one person's comments on that
Well,
form after how long.
but I think-
I'm just pointing out that I don't want to take a knee-jerk. I'm not saying we are, and I'm not saying we shouldn't.
Well, that's a good point, but I think that's a concern that's echoed in many areas, not just this area. So it reflects a more broad concern that people have. And so I think respecting that is at least worth taking it to the next step in the process.
I understand and I respect that he used his solution to overcome it, that concern. That's also the reality. Now, will more come out of it? Will more people be concerned of it because of that? We shall see.
So,
Yeah, only thing I was going to add is, as someone who's been in two separate government agencies, this isn't the first time I've heard this complaint.
Sure.
I can attest that I had multiple candidates on an authority when I was at the county express the similar concerns of, why am I being asked? And it's anecdotal information, but I just wanted to share. I've heard it before, so.
There's a reason I don't turn mine in until April 30th. It's the same nature.
all right, well, understood. We're gonna float this to PSATs, and they may all say that, and that'll be the end of it. But at least there's a
Well,
support.
the county,
To your
Or,
original
uh,
question.
our county,
And if the
Yeah.
response from the
Association.
county is, hey, it ain't broke,
That will likely occur in the fall.
Fall.
I think that the spring is more of training, I believe. I'm not sure.
So I'm
I
on the
have to go-
executive committee.
Oh,
I'm the first vice president.
oh, congratulations.
Yeah, so this is a scaled back, with the change in the composition of the committee this year and the people on the committee. We felt that with limited resources, we would be able to keep the spring convention going, but it's smaller. We have 5 vendors who will be coming. It's at the Patton Township building. We had
that's where it's
trouble-
gonna be, in the
Yeah,
20th Patton
yeah,
Township.
CPI had too many conflicts this year. And also, just rearranging the composition of the committee, it was challenging to get enough bandwidth to really bring it to where it was. So we'll regroup after this, but we wanted to maintain the continuity of that. So we'll begin planning for the fall committee on May 1st. So we're ahead of it.
All right, then,
I have one that we put forward to I think we put forward to the county association before, and that was to allow us to have a millage for police services on our real
this is
estate
new,
tax
this is
bill.
not one that's on here, this is a suggested new.
It had been suggested in the past, and I don't think it actually got carried forward. So since we have the benefit of somebody on the executive board of our county association, I would ask if that could be considered for the fall too. Don't need any answer right now,
Right.
but at some point, would appreciate if we could discuss that.
Sure.
Because it's one of our biggest line items in our budget, and I think from a transparency standpoint, it's beneficial for our residents to know what they're paying for police services. Especially for those municipalities that
Or how
aren't
much,
paying for.
what portion of their millage is going towards it.
Well, it's its own millage. Right now, it's all lumped into the general
Right.
fund, so it's not really transparent unless you
You wanna
dig through
identify
the-
it like with parks and the other
Correct,
things.
fire is another, the public service type stuff,
Yeah.
that's my thought.
Given the percentage, given the amount, seems to make sense. All right, then, are there any other questions or comments on any of these? The idea is that if anybody discovers they have any heartburn or
Yeah,
questions, we'll
let's just bring this back.
quick revisit.
Yeah.
I will say before we leave this one that I did volunteer. I did make the mistake of responding to PSAT's request for help. And I've been assigned to moderate two sessions and asked if I would consider others.
Oh, wow.
So,
They assigned me one.
what's that?
They only assigned me one.
Oh, well, I guess when
They
you're,
had better qualified candidates.
I don't know,
Two.
that I'm an
You have to tell us
award-winning
who you're
manager.
moderating.
Anyways, they may not be done.
No. Okay.
That's
That's the
Well,
impression I
they
got.
may
That's a
not.
strong possibility.
I got the impression they're still looking for some. Anyways, that would conclude our PSATs, and that would take us to staff informatives. We're not gonna go through them, but we'll say, does staff have any further comment on SI1, the April 2025 EZP update? I'm seeing a head shaking no. Does council have any questions on that update? All right, any staff, anything to offer on the March OEO report? Or does Mark have anything to add beyond what's in there? Questions for Mark? If not, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn. No, he won't.
But wait.
But wait, there's more. I'm very pleased to say that our own Katie Van Amberg has completed another rotation around the sun. And so congratulations. And I was asked to do that, so.
I guess, by who?
No, I'm looking right at you.
So you should feel very, very indoctrinated into the College Township family at this point,
Thank you,
so.
I appreciate that.
Where would you rather be on your birthday?
Well, it's not today,
Oh, okay,
it's
okay,
actually Sunday.
okay.
Falls on Easter.
Well, so now all of America knows that your Facebook page will be blasted with many more birthday wishes. Sunday, just for anybody who didn't catch that. All right, now can the chair entertain a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, do I have a second? I heard a second. We're adjourned.